I work as an EMT for an ambulance company. EMT has always been full of superstitions, and most of us believed in a supernatural on account of all the crazy gruesome stuff we get to see on any given shift. Every company, every EMT, every firefighter has a story about a station that is haunted or something that happened to them that only can be explained as paranormal. For the company I work at, we have about 5 stations, each with their own stories. Only 1 or 2 truly scary stories though. Mostly things like employees seeing shadows out of the corner of their eyes, getting uneasy feelings in the stations, or hearing an unexplained knock or voice, or being hissed or growled at occasionally. The station I work at was no different. It was our main station, and we have all this extra resupply because it's the main station. So it is not uncommon for various crews to be going in and out of the station at all hours of the day. It was common knowledge that the ambulance bay was creepy at night. People report hearing voices, footsteps, or ambulance doors opening and closing out in the garage. Now I have been working in this station for 2 years and I have heard these things, but I've always been easy to dismiss this as my partner doing something out in the bay. The only experience I have had there that I could not explain was distinctly growled at the garage late night. At the time I quickly realized that the only person in the bay was me, and I certainly did not growl at myself and quickly left. That was all I have experienced until the last night. The station is small and consists of a living room with a kitchenette attached to the hallway. This hallway leads to the garage on one side and the bathroom on the other side. And at the end of the hallway is a door leading to the junior's bedroom, which you can walk through to get to the senior's bedroom. If you go into the garage, there is a staircase that leads into the attic that stretches above the entire living quarters of the station. Me, Junior, and my partner, Senior, are dead asleep in our respective bedrooms. All the doors closed. I was woken by loud banging noises and walls shaking. I realized that this banging is not just banging, but it's actually someone running on the top. Something very huge, fast, and heavy is stomping and running around in the attic upstairs. It is stomping and running so loud it's quite literally shaking the walls. It's getting faster, it's getting loud, and it's running the entire length of the attic. And it's like so fast that I cannot imagine something could be that fast. It sounded like someone has too many legs. I'm sitting upright in my bed now, huddled and in the corner of the bedroom, absolutely horrified and petrified. Collecting myself, I get this deep, spherical, primal feeling of dread, almost like what prey must feel like when they are being hunted. And suddenly, it's as if a thought from somewhere else is placed into my mind, and I just know with every fiber of my being that it knows that I am awake and that I know it's there, like sick twisted version of that Spider-Man meme. In between the stomping and running, I can hear this barking, whirling sound. It's hard to describe. It's like a current mixed with the sound of wind, and it was running so fast that I can feel that it is creating wind, swooshing and whipping around it. Now I very silently get up and walk over to the senior's bedroom and try to open it, but it's locked. I feel as though I can't make a noise, or it will come through into the station and kill me. So I'm knocking the door as quiet as I can be, and I'm crying and pleading for my partner to let me in. I'm thinking, this is so loud. There's no way she's asleep, but she is out cold, and I don't know what to do. And I did not get any response from her, so I decided that my partner had the right idea, and I crept over to the junior's bedroom, separating my bedroom from the hallway that leads to the garage and the rest of the station, and locked the door. So I silently creep back over to my corner in the bed with my blankets and begin to text her. It is 1:45 and I'm begging her to wake up over text. I'm texting her, describing what I'm hearing, but she's not answering. She is dead asleep. So I texted her fiancé to call her, wake her up, but he's also not answering. At this point I decided to call my mom. It doesn't even feel like it is my own thought, more like a piece of truth was just slipped into me by the universe. The thing upstairs is not human. Now I am explaining this to my mom, that what I'm hearing, the sound, the running, the stomping, then I hear it run down the stairs. When I tell you, my heart stopped and my soul left my body. When I heard coming down the stairs, my stomach dropped into my ass and I was so much nauseous. I genuinely thought I was going to die today. So now I'm absolutely hysterical on the phone with my mom. No one ever prepared for me dealing this kind of situation, dealing with being hunted or taunted by a demon. My mom's tried to calm me down and asked me what she can do, and I asked her that I don't know what to do, just please don't hang up. She tells me to bang on my partner's doors and wake her up, and I decided to do it, and I did. My partner woke up and heard the rustling in her bedroom, and she goes, "Yeah," in a dismissive voice, and slowly walks over to the door and opens it. I literally shoved her back in the room, whipped faster than I have ever moved in my life, closed the door and locked it. I explained everything I was hearing, and we go and sat on the bed. The activity is dialing down now, and it is still active, but it's not that active that it was before, but you can hear there is someone upstairs. So now this is around 2:45 a.m. Another crew gets off at 3 a.m. and got to our station to put their truck away and clock out to go home. So me and my partner huddled together, glued to each other's hip, hurried outside together to meet with them out in the building parking lot. It is at this point that we realized that a completely separate crew from around 11 p.m. that night had not only left our truck full of medical equipment and drugs unlocked in the parking lot in an area known for being not so great, but also left our garage door open, giving literally just anybody access to our entire station. So me and my partner are terrified and aren't willing to go back into the station at this point. The crew that was getting off at 3 a.m. goes into the station and to clock out, and when they came back, they see us hanging out in the truck. They joke with us for a minute over the ghost and make fun of us for sleeping in the truck for the rest of the shift. We asked them if they heard anything, to which the senior on that crew, who has been there for a long time and staunchly believed in the supernatural, says yes, it is definitely sounds like there is someone walking up there, but he is harmless. Me and my partner are just like, harmless? That thing is not harmless. They leave and we decided to call police department, make sure that it wasn't some crackhead that had gotten in while the garage door had been left open. PD got there and searched around everywhere. They did not find anything or any clue or any kind of any evidence. So it is now 4 a.m. and we notify our dispatch that the station was cleared to be safe by police department, and together we venture back inside. We elected to keep the truck in the parking lot, so we would have to go back into the garage if we got a call or needed to make a quick escape from the demon. And together we huddled and go into the living room with all the lights open or on until we get off. And together we huddled together in the living room with all the lights on until we get off. We got off at 7 a.m. I heard a few minor bumps and bangs out, but nothing crazy. Things that could be dismissed as house noises and whatnot. I barely slept, and I'm not looking forward to going back there later this week.
This happened back in 2020. I went to the UK for my master's degree. Back in 2020, when I traveled to the UK, unforgettable incident occurred during the short trip with my two friends. It was a cold January day when we embarked our journey from Bristol to Edinburgh. The time was around 2 or 3 a.m. We were on the road. We decided to take a stop. We were listening to horror stories during all the drive. When we stopped at the gas station, which was near to the city, but it was very empty because it was late 2 a.m. So we were sitting in the car at gas station. We were resting in the car, and I thought I can play horror stories again. So we were listening to the horror stories. There was a knock on the door of the car. We looked over, but nothing was there. And we ignored it because no one was around. But after a few minutes, someone knocked again. It was like when you knock and someone doesn't listen to it, then you knock it hard to grab the attention. We got scared. Unease settled over us, and we cautiously stepped out of the car, expecting to find an explanation for the disturbance. It was dark and very silent because it was very late. Shaken but determined to continue our journey, we hurriedly refreshed ourselves in the gas station's bathroom. One of our friends had chosen to doze off in the back seat of the car while we were away. When we were coming back from the bathroom, our sleeping friend emerged from the car, visibly shaken and accusing us of forcibly dragging him out of the car and slapping him awake. We both were shocked and speechless because we were in the bathroom. We told him we didn't do a such thing, and why would we do that for our friend? No, you are telling a lie. And he insisted, and he was not convinced that we are telling the truth. We both were looking at each other at what happened, seeking an explanation for this turn of events. So we prayed Ayatul Kursi and other Quranic verses. The friend who was sleeping, now he was driving the car and keeps telling, "You guys should not do such a thing when someone's sleeping." We didn't do it, buddy. He did not believe us. Between our discussion, another friend who went with me at the back station was feeling heavy on his chest, and he was sitting at the back. Again, something happened. The friend who was driving the car, someone slapped him again from his left. Now he's really in shock. He turned back and asked the other friend, "Did you hit me?" The backseat friend, "No, I was just talking to you right now. How can I hit you?" Now we all are extremely shocked and terrified. We understood something is wrong with the car, within this car. Something is not right. I am used to listening to real horror stories. I know these things happen and it's happening with us right now. We cannot deny the existence of supernatural beings. Somehow, we reached there. We rested in the hotel. Next day, we went back to our city because it was a short trip and our exams were close. This time, I was driving the car, and the person who was driving the car yesterday was tired after all the driving, so he went back to the sleep on the back seat again. We were on the highway. He startled us by saying, "Stop the car right now." We emergency braked the car in the middle of the highway. The moment I stopped the car, he opened the door and ran outside. We were like, "What happened?" He said, "I'm not going in this car. I'm not getting into this car." We said, "What happened? How would you go back?" He replied, "There was someone in the car. I saw somebody, some entity was sitting beside me and was looking at me directly, and he was that serious." After all the arguments, he said, "Okay, fine. I'll be in the passenger seat then. I won't sit in the back." I said to the other friend, "You should go to the back seat then." He also negated it because he was also feeling heavy on the chest and feeling not good since yesterday. They said we were experiencing something and you are not feeling anything, so you should go on the back. After deciding that who will go on the back, my other friend agreed on driving the car, and me and the other friend who ran out of the car agreed to sit on the back. I was sitting in the middle of the seat and he was on my left side. He was wearing a hoodie. It was pretty chilling out there. He was not even looking at me. He was dead petrified. And then when he looked on the right side, he literally said, "Someone is sitting beside you." We somehow reached our hostel by praying and not losing our mind. The whole trip, the whole experience was bizarre and extremely terrifying. We did not even discuss after reaching our hostel about this for a week. That was indeed a dreadful trip.
Hello, I have been asked a few times to share this story. I apologize for any weird formatting errors as I am on mobile. My junior year of high school, I went to the party where the host eventually brought out Ouija board. I was big into paranormal stuff then, but I didn't know the dangers one of those boards could hold. Typical questions were asked, but it started to get incredibly dark in my vision. Even though lights were on, it didn't seem to help any. The last being, how old will I be when I die? Everyone got traditional numbers, except for me. It just went to 0, then 1, then 0, then 1. It bounced back and forth between those two numbers until someone shook the piece and said it was being stupid. At that point, I just stopped playing. It weirded me out. Now I have pretty good sense of things. I can sense and normally see beings or ghosts. He showed up to me during one of my classes not even a few weeks later. At first, he felt like comfort, like a protector. But I would learn that was not the case. Weird things in our home would happen. Drawers opening, whispers, shadows, lights in places where they shouldn't be, books moving. But at night it would be worse. He would stand in front of my door and the fear would ooze out of him and the form would change. I have no doubt that he was downright evil. I began to deal with this for a couple of years till I met my now husband. We got our first home and things began to escalate. Now keep in mind we had a small rental, about 400 square feet total, so standing in the living area you could see really any point of the house. Footsteps, breathing, whispers became the norm. At the time, my soon-to-be husband was a practicing Wiccan, and had blessed our home. But he forgot about porch and outer walls. We would hear scratches on the walls, knocking on the door and windows. People had seen my attachment as a shadow. Everyone stated he was tall and built like a brick house. He felt just outright bad and would always go back into the room I was in. My husband had to try to banish him, and it did not go well. You see, my husband worked the closing shift and would get home about 3:30 a.m. There was a road he would have to take that was very haunted as well. Lots of accidents happened there. One night he got home and he was extremely pale and sweating. I knew something happened, but he wouldn't tell me, as at the time he did not want me to worry. About a week after, he finally told me that driving on the road that night, his brakes failed and he could not stop. He was going about 60 miles per hour and the wheel began to jerk out of his hand towards the river. He had to use all of his strength to keep that car on the road, which was curvy already to begin with because the wheel was just yanking so hard towards the river. Spoiler alert, the brakes were fine next day and the wheel was not having any kind of issues. When he told me this had happened, I finally said enough was enough. If evil could exist, so good. And I started taking him with me to a church that my parents were going to. I gave myself to the God, told the entity that it was not welcome and needed to leave, and the hauntings stopped. For the first time in years, my home was quiet, and it has stayed that way even though I have stopped going to church for the most part. We no longer live in that house anymore and have even moved out of the state, but even our new home is quiet and kind. So this is much like my incident with the ghost of the Civil War nurse. Isn't going to be grand epic. It isn't going to be I saw the ghost type of thing. I honestly wish it was, as those things make for better retellings and they are harder to dispute. Anyway, for a bit of backstory, I live in a small southern city with history dating back to the Civil War. The apartment building I call home and have called home for almost 4 years now was built in 1936 to be apartments instead of existing as a house, first only, to then be converted into apartments. The walls and floors in this place are tremendously paper thin, as I can hear my downstairs neighbor's TV and my downstairs neighbor if she is talking too loud or loud enough. There are squirrels in the wall that I can hear scribbling time to time, and I can hear every time the front door opens and shuts, generally because people slam it. I say all that to say, yes, I know there is rational, logical explanations for all sort of things. I'm sure there is a logical explanation for heavy footsteps I sometimes hear in my downstairs neighbor's apartment, which sounded like she puts on her heaviest pair of hiking boots, which I would be surprised if she owns, and paces, doing her best to stomp heavily in every step. I'm sure there is an explanation for knocking I'll hear sometimes on the bathroom wall, which sounds very much like my other neighbor is rapping his knuckles against his side of the wall. I am even sure there is a logical explanation for the shadow of the arm I'm sure I saw in my dark kitchen once and only once back in 2020, staring at it as I was from the living room. I am sure there is a logical explanation for any and all little creepy things that have happened while I have lived here. But I can find no explanation for this next part. This was about a week ago. I was about to go to sleep, sitting on the couch. I sleep on my couch because the living room is the only room I can somewhat climate control, be it through the heaters or fans, and playing some solitaire to sort of relax. It was a particularly noisy evening that night. The train was whistling and groaning as it made its way down the tracks. The squirrels were scrabbling in the walls, and I could hear one of the neighbors moving around. In truth, I was a little unnerved by all the noises, and then in the midst of everything else, I hear it. Oh. It was a small voice, toneless, either a woman or young woman or child. It wasn't muffled. It didn't sound like it was coming from a TV from one of my neighbors. It sounded like it was coming from the kitchen or my bedroom. I stopped. I paralyzed, listening and hear nothing else. Ever since then, I've heard nothing else and have no explanation for it. There is no grand ghost story attached to this place. The only thing that comes close being a half remembered story from the old landlord about some little girl going missing here at some point. Even he hadn't heard about him himself, had only heard about it from a woman doing research for a ghost walk. It could mean nothing, and I probably won't ever hear anything else, just like the Civil War nurse at my college. But I know what I heard. I know what it wasn't, even if I don't know what it was. That's what counts, right? Continuing to my previous story. So, a few weeks ago, I posted about hearing a young girl tonelessly utter "uh-oh" in my apartment, coming from the hallway behind me. In my next post, I detailed everything strange I had seen or heard from the shadow of a woman's arm I would seen in the doorway from my room. So here's another story. I have grown more and more uncomfortable sleeping in my bedroom for one reason or another. I have gone being able to sleep rather soundly through the night to waking up after only a few hours and being wholly unable to get back to the sleep. I started having those dreams where you cannot talk right, like no matter how much you try, you can't ever get the words out. I have had these time to time, but it was becoming every time I went back to sleep. More and more, while I slept there, I started hearing what I assumed to be a squirrel in the wall between my bedroom and living room, even during the day, but only while I was sleeping in that bed, and only during the day. Now, squirrels in my wall are not that unusual, but normally I have heard them in the outside walls in the middle of the apartment. One day in particular stands out where I was taking a nap in the middle of the day. I was nearly asleep, drifting in the state between wakefulness and sleep, when I heard it, a voice coming from the room. Psst. It was like someone is calling me. Now, I am no stranger to hallucinating voices or sounds, scraps of dreams, as I am about to go to sleep, and after hurriedly looking around room spooked, I closed my eyes and started falling back to sleep. I get jolted awake a few moments later by the same voice. Psst. Deciding sleep was for the weak, I got up shakily and left my bedroom behind. Over the few next weeks, sleeping in my bedroom became more and more difficult. Once, while laying there, I began to hear thumping coming from somewhere and another whisper in my ear. I woke up another time and I thought I saw a figure standing by my bed. Though I have to wear glasses and without them I'm pretty blind. I've got an old radio that I brought from my parents' house and use as a nightstand. I might have just half asleep and pretty blind mistook the radio for a person, though, and doesn't quite explain it, as the radio is not the same height as the person. I've got my great granddad's suit butler, a wooden thing where somebody might hang a suit, sitting by my bed, pushed up against the corner and out of the way after I tripped over it. Moved it to a different room in the house and tripped over it again. I doubt it's the source of any haunting, as I have had it since mid 2022, and the weird stuff's been happening since before that. More than once, I've woken up groggily, rolling over, seeing it, and being convinced it's a mirror. There is a hole in the middle of that thing that could be mistaken for the mirror if you did not know what you were looking at. So for about a week now, I have been sleeping in my living room on an old broken down couch to see if I sleep any better. Now, for years, ever since I moved on, I'll occasionally feel a gust of cold air against the back of my neck, something I have always attributed to the ceiling fan or one of the other fans in the room. Just a few minutes ago, while standing in the bathroom, I felt a similar gust of cold air against my knees. Now, there is a standing fan in the hallway, but it was positioned just on the other side of the bathroom door and was pointed down the hallway, nowhere near the bathroom. It was after the incident that I began to contemplate posting an update. As I was sitting here listening to a video and having basically convinced myself that I probably had not had enough happen to justify posting an update, I heard it, the sound of something falling over, crackling, chipping like glass, being pushed off, something. I got up after several minutes and did a loop of my apartment. and haven't found anything yet that might have caused it. I'm pretty certain my apartment is haunted. This happened around 4 years ago, and I'm still trying to figure out what exactly I saw. I live in mid-Michigan, Flint area. One morning around 5 a.m., my boss was giving me a ride to work, and as she approached a traffic light, I saw what appeared to be a German Shepherd dog standing in the middle of the intersection. As we got closer, the dog appeared to morph into deer fawn and run away. At first I chalked it up to exhaustion, my mind playing tricks like that stuff. But then my boss said I could have sworn that there was a dog. When I told her I saw a German Shepherd, she confirmed that was the breed she saw as well. I'm kinda stumped, as German Shepherds look nothing like deers. Are we both just crazy? Or something happened that night? I believe in my point. There are shapeshifters, there are supernatural beings, and the thing you saw was not an animal. The night before last, I decided to sleep on my couch because I was having a hard time falling asleep. TV helps sometimes. My youngest daughter came out to sleep on the other side of the couch, L-shape, with me around midnight. She sleeps with me most nights because she gets scared in her room. My teenage daughter stalks a lot, but this night she kept calling me from her room over and over, just saying "Mom," but not responding when I said "What?" The third time she did this, I was already awake around 3 a.m. and right after I felt 3 firm taps on my shoulder. I was facing the back of the couch. I assumed it was my little one and said "What?" No response. Then more taps. I asked again. No response. Then more taps. This time I turn over and see the hand receding away from me. It was fairly dark, and at this point I thought it was my daughter. But I sat up to look at her and realized that she is sleeping on the opposite side of the couch, out cold. It would have been impossible for it to be her hand as she was way far away. I can't make sense of it, and I'm not a spiritual person. If someone told me this exact story 3 days ago, I would not have believed them. I'm not crazy. I've never experienced hallucinations or delusions of any kind. Does anyone know what that was or experience anything similar?
This all happened many years ago. I was living with my family. We had a first floor apartment, and I was around 14, 15ish at the time. One night, while I was laying in my bedroom, which had a window facing the backyard, this was very unsettling, dragging sound came from outside. I can only describe it as someone dragging heavy metal chains over the cobblestone all along the length of the building, taking irregular pauses from dragging with regularity. At first, I thought it was someone messing around with a metal shopping cart, as those can be quite noisy on tarmac. Too scared to look out in the window, I went to sleep. Naturally, the next day, I went looking for that shopping cart. Nowhere to be found. Thought it was a one-off. But then it happened again, and again, and again, and again. Always between 1 a.m. to 4 a.m. The sound did not ever happen outside this window of time. If I fell asleep before that, which I often did, no experiences, the terror factor and intensity rose as the sound kept coming back. And now it did not seem to lurk along the building and right outside my window, going back and forth. The pauses in the sounds were almost worse than the sounds themselves. Then one night, this happened yet again, very intense. Whatever it was circling outside my window. Then bang! Something smashed on the window so loudly that I almost pissed in my pants and crept under my covers and stayed there for the rest of the night. Sounded like a smack with an open palm full force to the window. Just sheer fucking terror is what I felt during these events. Never been that scared since. Next morning, I expected to see either a dead bird below the window flying into it at the night, yeah, kinda dumb, or palm prints on the window itself. None of that. The weird thing is that I mustered the balls to look out the window, convinced someone was fucking with me. When I looked out, the sound stopped. Obviously nothing was there, which kinda pissed me off, not gonna lie. Then I got back in bed. The sound crept back, slowly increasing in intensity. A hedged part of the backyard right outside my window always scraped the fuck out of me. For some reason, even before the sound and bangs. Never liked taking the path through the tall decorative hedges. There was a chill out area in my middle of them for all residents to use. Never experienced this anywhere else, only the few years while living there. I wrote it off as pranks or sleep paralysis. I was actually pissed off at my friends for a while because of this. Kept it to myself though. I also believed it could have been a bum or drunk with a broken ass shopping cart aimlessly stumbling around. But this did not make sense in regards to the area. It was not a drunk bum with a shopping cart kind of place. Whatever it was menacing and still scares me a little to this day. Never saw nothing, don't believe in ghosts, but this was fucked up. I only really started doubting the prank and sleep paralysis after hearing about experience from other people, experiences that only happened in one place within the limited time frame from people that are obviously mentally stable.